Hi everybody, how are you tonight? I thought the stories were really powerful tonight, very heavy topics. I have a heavy topic, but I'm going to try to make it fun. It's about the biggest Philly fan I ever knew. And talk about losing. The Philadelphia Phillies have lost more games than any team in the history of sports. They lost 10,000 games by the year 2007. The franchise started in 1883. They did not win a World Series game until 97 years later. And the reason that's important is because generations of men and women in this area got used to losing. Their fathers, their grandfathers, they never saw the Phillies win. And if you're not a Phillies fan or not a sports fan, just explain a little bit the male psyche. Many men, myself included, the only way they talk to their dad, their brother, their best friend is kidding them about sports. It's a hell of a lot easier than saying about your feelings or I love you. It created two types of fans in this entire area. One are the negative people, the boo-birds, the pessimists, the people who booed Santa Claus. I am one of those. I was at that game. I was a kid, but it was a ratty-looking Santa, and I'm not ashamed of it. The other is my best friend, Steven Saffron. I call him Saf. Saf was Mr. Positive. No matter what happened to the Phillies, they were going to win. He was positive. He always had a positive outlook. Saf and I grew up together. We played 1,000 games of one-on-one basketball. I was ahead, talk about Yahtzee, I was ahead 504 to 496. He claims he was ahead 506 to 494. Memories get lost over the years. We did everything together. We were big buddies. This past couple of years, Steve got cancer. We've heard that a couple times tonight. He went through chemo, it was kidney cancer, he couldn't eat anymore, they fed him through a tube. He looked like a walking skeleton. This is a guy that we competed against each other our whole life. Did he get negative? No. It drove me nuts. He stayed positive through the entire thing. It was just ridiculous how positive he was. Our relationship changed the last 3 years. What I would do is he lived up above Bucks County. And for the last 3 years, I would drive up there once a week and sit with him and watch the Phillies games. And did we talk about the big issues of the time? Did we do Tuesdays with Maury? No. We argued sports. Then when I couldn't drive up there, I would talk during the game and heckle him about his favorite players. Now, one of the constant arguments we had a couple years ago, the Phillies had a player named Ben Revere. Ben Revere hit about 300, stole bases, whatever. Ben Revere couldn't throw the ball from the outfield into the infield. So when he would throw in from the outfield, I'd call up Steve and go, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And he goes, "Why are you so negative? All you talk about is what somebody can't do. Why don't you talk about what he can do?" An amazing thing the Phillies do was Steve's family reached out to the Phillies and said, "Look, this guy's a huge Phillies fan and he's deathly ill. Can you do something for us?" And the Phillies said, "Come on in, free tickets, you get a batting practice, and we'll introduce you to your favorite Philly ever." Steve called me up and said, "Pat, would you come with me?" I said, "Sure, Steve, that'd be an honor." "Who you taking? Chase Utley? Ryan Howard?" He goes, "No, Ben Revere." I go, "Are you kidding me? I'd rather meet the Philly fanatic. I don't want to meet Ben Revere." And he goes, "Will you be there?" I go, Sure, I'll be there. You don't even like Ben Revere." He goes, "Sure." Ben Revere could not have been a nicer human being. We meet him. He had been traded to Toronto. We had to wait until Toronto came into town to meet Ben Revere. We meet Ben Revere. And we had brought a group of people, but just when we met him, it was me, Steve, and Ben Revere. And Ben Revere says, "Sir," and he's looking at Steve, who looks, just horrible. He says, "Sir, I'm going to dedicate my year to you. I am so honored that you would pick me." And Steve says, "Mr. Revere, thank you. I've always thought you're a great player. You hit bases. You hit well. You steal bases. Unlike my buddy here. He thinks you throw like a little girl." And I realized why he picked Ben Revere. He set me up. Ben Revere took it in stride. Everybody has different opinions. This past year, and around Christmas time or whatever, Steve had his last birthday party. And I came there, and Steve's throwing up. He's having an incredible time. He's singing. He's doing all this stuff. And I come up and go, "Why are you so happy? What's going on?" He goes, "I got a birthday card from Ben frickin' Revere." What do you think of that, huh? He shoves it on my nose, Mr. Negative. And I couldn't say anything. Last month was Steve's funeral. The night before his funeral, I go to his wife's house. Now, I've made this trip once a week for the last 3 years. I go and knock on the door. It's late at night. And his wife has a lot on her plate. And I said, I got to talk to you, Deb. Her name's Deb. She goes, "What?" And I go, I have a confession to make. I wrote the Ben Revere birthday card. I thought it was funny. I didn't know he'd take it. It was postmarked Westchester, for God's sake, not Toronto. He should have picked it up. And she says to me, "Look, you can't tell anybody. We just had this big meeting with the rabbi, and he's all, he thought that was really interesting, but she did think it was funny. So, I thought we were cool." The next day of the service, family spoke. After the family spoke, this rabbi got up and gave a 35-minute speech, 10 minutes of which dealt with this. Now, let me tell you a little bit about a baseball player. He was drafted by the Minnesota Twins. He wound his way up to the Philadelphia Phillies. Last year, he's in the playoffs in Toronto. He now is on the National East League Washington Nationals. And as he's saying this on and on, I'm cringing, sinking into my chair, and avoiding Deb's stare at me as she's glaring at me. It was horrible. And he just talked on and on about how prestigious it was this baseball player wrote the birthday card. I go to the Shiva, the ceremony afterwards at Steve's house, and everybody kept coming up to me and go, "How about Steve and that Ben Revere, huh? How about that birthday card?" And, that was amazing. Before this speech, I had to work myself up. That's why I took the extra sip of beer. I worked myself up, and I called Deb. I called Deb today, and I go, "Look, I'm thinking of telling the second part of the Ben Revere story, the birthday card. Is it okay?" And she said, Steve's favorite show was Curb Your Enthusiasm. This is a lot like an episode of that. Go ahead. Whenever the Phillies lose now or do something stupid, I immediately reach to the phone to call Steve. And then I put the phone down. Now there's two ways, and we've heard a lot of sad stories today. There's two ways to react to that. You could be like me and get negative and boo God. You stink, you idiot. Or you could do what Steve told me to do. And I always think about, what would Steve do? He was with me when my father passed. And he told me afterwards, and that was when we were young. And how much time are there?
Near the end.
Near it, that's fine. I could talk about Steve all night. He told me this. He said, "No one is lost as long as you keep them in your hearts, and as long as you talk about them." So thank me for keeping Steve in my heart. I miss you, Steve.